Hello students. This is Kim Young University Spirit class video 6. Let's get started. First, I hope you guys had a nice chuseok. Um, and you're kind of refreshed and recharged. So let's look at assignments for this week. Last lesson there was no assignment. Like I said, I wanted to give you some time to just recharge and relax. Midterm weeks are coming soon. We're not going to have a test, but we're going to have an assignment. So usually there is a midterm week, but the last 2 semesters, the midterm and final periods have been a little longer because by making it longer, you're going to have less people going to the university. I'm going to introduce it in the next slide, but my midterm assignment is not a test. It's just an assignment that you're going to do, and yeah, you don't have to come to the school or do anything like that. It's not a test. It's just going to be an assignment, so don't worry about the midterm. Don't worry about taking a test or anything in this class. I'm gonna introduce it today, and you can finish it anytime before October 31st. So you have almost the whole month to finish the assignment. I don't think it'll take you that long to do it. It's not that hard. Also, this week's assignment is going to require that you have a book. So if you don't have the book yet, you're going to need to borrow one from a friend or find it at the school library. Yeah, so I'll tell you about the assignment at the end of the video. Okay, so midterm assignment. Like I said, the midterm test or whatever, the midterm time is coming soon. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to make a PowerPoint slide, and in the PowerPoint slide you're going to have your voice recording, and it will be included in the PowerPoint slide. So I'm going to give you directions how to do that. Maybe you've done that before. Maybe I'm sure a lot of people have not done that before, but it's not too difficult as long as you have the correct software to do it. So basically, we have learned a lot about missionaries in this class so far. What they've done in Korea and all that stuff. And I want you to research and learn about a different missionary or group of missionaries and to make a report about what you have learned. The total voice recording section should be about 4 or 5 minutes long, and you can include as many slides as you want in your PowerPoint, but I think the minimum should be 4 or 5 slides. The slides can just be like a picture or some text, but the main focus of this is going to be your voice. I want to hear your voice as you talk about each slide. So again, about 4 or 5 minutes. Which I don't know. I don't think it's that long, actually. I think it's a good amount. Like, it's not going to be free talking. You're going to prepare what you're going to say. So I think this, 4 or 5 minutes is not too tough to get to. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so as far as who do you want to pick as your missionary, you can literally pick any missionary in the history of the world that you want, but some of you might have no idea who to pick, so I thought of some ideas of people you might want to pick. So you could pick other missionaries that went to Korea if you want. Like, we learned a lot about Edward Adams and Baird and all those people, right? So you can pick any missionary that went to Korea. There have been many others who have traveled and been a missionary in Korea. Like in the last video, I mentioned how Daegu Catholic University was started by French Catholic missionaries. If you wanted to do a presentation about that, about them, or really anybody else, other than like, just don't do the Adams family. I think even if you wanted to do Bayard, I guess that could be okay too, because we didn't learn too much about him. But just not anybody from the Adams family. So James Adams, Edward Adams, none of those people. Okay. Okay. So missionaries that worked as Korea, also Korean people who have been missionaries. There are many Korean people who have gone to Africa to do missionary work, the Middle East. I'm sure you could find some, you know, Christian Korean person who traveled and tried to spread the word of God. So that is also an option. Okay, I'm sure there are a lot that you could find. And then, if neither of these are interesting to you, my other idea is that let's say that you're interested in a certain part of the world, like you're very curious about South America, or you're very curious about Russia, or you're very curious about whatever, Vietnam or some other country, then focus on the country, but you could also learn that country's history by learning about the missionaries who visited there. So, like, let's say you're really interested in Brazil, you could learn about the first missionaries that went to Brazil and spread Christianity. Or if you're very interested in I don't know, the Philippines or whatever, you could learn about the missionaries who went there. Pretty much every country in the world has had some kind of missionary work. So, like I said, if you're a person who this topic is not exciting, then I think at least you must be interested in some country. So like I think that's another option for you. And then the last thing that I thought about could just be like current day missionary life. So you could just look up, people who are doing missionary work now. Like what is the current technology that they're using? How has coronavirus affected missionaries? Are people doing like online missionary work? Like what's going on today? So, like I said, I try to give you ideas for people that are interested in different things, right? So some people are very interested in the history of Korea, so they could do that. And also, you could just be interested in Korean people who have traveled around the world, again, countries, or technology, even like this one. So I hope one of these is interesting for you, and you can pick one and tell us about an interesting missionary, okay? Okay. um, I'll give you more details about this later, but just so you can get it into your mind, like how am I going to be grading this assignment? Um, there'll be pretty much four things that I'm looking at. The first is effort. Effort is something that's difficult to explain exactly, but maybe in another video I'll explain a little more. But you have to understand that because this class uses relative grading, the grading process is a lot different from other classes that you may have taken like in high school or something like that, where it's all based on a test. I have to pretty much make a judgment call on your overall ability and effort, basically. And I have to say, in this class of 20 people, who seems like they are really trying their best and um, doing something well. So like this would be basically how much time I felt you spent researching the topic, how organized your slides are, um, the depth of the research that you did. Um, so again, because there's 20 people in the class, and I have to judge when would I do grading and things like that. When there's a curve, it's like, at least now during COVID, 50% of people can get an A, right, in the class. So I have to just choose the top half students. So whenever there's an assignment, I just have to make this judgment, like who is near the top and who's closer to the bottom in terms of what their assignments look like. So again, this is kind of a weird thing. It's just kind of my judgment, basically, like who is trying their best. So I didn't explain it very well, but it is what it is. Okay, these are the things I can check a lot more easily. Um, I told you before, this is not a English class, right? Exactly, it's not exactly an English class, but I will grade you on these things, at least for this assignment. I'm not expecting like a perfect pronunciation or intonation or fluency, but I have taught these things in the class, and I'm going to teach you a little bit more about each one of these. So I think it's fair to judge you on these because I'm going to give you lessons on each of these things. So again, because I'm going to spend time teaching you about pronunciation, I expect when you do your assignment that you have good pronunciation that's clear and easy to understand, and as well that your language flows and you have good fluency, and that you also use correct intonation. Maybe I have not hit on this enough, so probably I'll give you a little bit more about each one of these before we finish the assignment. But like I said, again, it's not an English class, but I do feel it's fair to judge you on these things because I'm teaching you them in the class. So I think it's fair to grade you on them. Um, but just as a note, overall, just try your best for this assignment. I'm not going to be checking if if your information is correct. The main point of this is that I just want you to learn some new things by yourself. I want you to learn how to research something on your own and present the information that you learned. I think that's a very important skill that you learn in university, which is to teach other people about something, right? I would say in high school, a lot of times you're judged a lot by your teacher. The teacher asks you to show some knowledge, and the teacher is gonna say that's wrong or that's right. That's not what I'm trying to do in this assignment. What I want is for you to teach me about a lot of these missionaries that I don't know anything about. So, like I said, I'm not gonna look and check to see if your information is correct. That's not the point of this. The point is just to learn something new and to share the knowledge with me, but at the same time to try to do it in a way where you're speaking in a clear voice and you have good pronunciation and good fluency. Okay, so again, we'll talk about this more as it gets closer, but I just want to just put it into your mind that this is the midterm that we're going to do, and maybe you can slowly start thinking about ideas of who you might want to talk about in your um, presentation. Okay. Uh, right now, I do want to spend a little bit of time teaching you about how to do this, like how to make a PowerPoint presentation that has a voice file in it. Um, so, first of all, it depends a lot on your computer and what kind of program you have. This computer is actually my wife's computer. It's a laptop, and it has a good camera and a good audio recording. That's why I'm using it. But the problem with this computer is that it does not have the original PowerPoint program. So I always have to make PowerPoints on my other computer, and then I send it to this computer. The reason I'm telling you this is everybody has a different situation in their house. Some people do not have PowerPoint on their computer, like this one. This doesn't not have the regular PowerPoint. This is like an online PowerPoint, and you cannot easily put in audio voice file. But let's talk about each situation. So situation one is I have a regular laptop, and my laptop has Microsoft PowerPoint. That is the best situation and the easiest situation. In that situation, even though I cannot show you exactly here, what you have to do is make a slide, and then you go to, it'll be called Insert. In Korean, I forgot what it's called. Guip or something like that, I'm not sure. But anyway, Insert, okay? And then in this, you'll find something that says like audio and then voice recording. In the original PowerPoint, it's really easy to do and very convenient. And you can literally just find the audio and then record your voice, and then press done, and it'll just go right onto your slide. So that's the easiest way, all right? But like I said, your computer might not have PowerPoint. So there is another thing you can do, which is called Google Slides. Okay, so Google Slides is very convenient to use. It's free, and anybody can use Google Slides. Okay, the only problem with Google Slides is that it's a little bit more complicated to insert audio into the program. So if you use Google Slides, why don't we just try it from the beginning? Okay, so Google Slides. So what do you need to use it? First of all, you need to have a Google account. You need to have like a Gmail. So if you don't have Gmail, you're going to have to make one. And when you make a Gmail account, you're going to have something called Drive, Google Drive, which is kind of like Naver Cloud. Okay, so please, I know a lot of Korean people are very comfortable using Naver and Daum and all that stuff, but this is a global world, right? So I do hope that you should, I suggest that you also make a Google email account. Okay, Google is very useful, and a lot of people around the world use it, so try to use it. So when you make your Google account, you can do a lot of things. It's connected to YouTube, and like I said, you have this Drive. Okay, so if you just type Google Slides into Google, you'll come to here, and then you can you have options. You can documents, or like this is Excel, slides, and this is like another type of program. So you just click Slides. Okay, go to Google Slides, and then it should be connected with your Google account already. So I already made this thing. So for my case, I'm from California, and I was interested in the history of missions in California. Okay, so when I go to insert audio in Google Slides, I cannot easily just record my voice. It's not possible. I don't know why, but you just can't. What you have to do is you have to select a audio file from your Google Drive. Okay, so again, Google Drive is like Naver Cloud. Okay, so here's one other thing. I tried before I made this video. I tried for like 30 minutes or something, and because I wanted to show you guys how to do this, but it was very difficult. What I did was I made a slide, and then I recorded my voice on my phone. The application I used was Samsung voice recorder, but there was a problem. Every time I loaded the audio file onto Google Drive, it was not showing up here. So like I got to this step, but there was nothing here. That is because of the file type. It's only going to accept like a WAV file or something like that. So what I had to do was I had to go to the Play Store and I had to download. What did I download? I typed in Android voice recorder, and then the first thing that came up was the other new voice recorder that I downloaded. Okay, so I'm just trying to tell you this because if you have any trouble, you might have to download a new voice recorder on your phone. But basically, the way you do it is you make your slides with Google Slides, and then you look at the picture or whatever you wrote, and you record your voice. Then you send it to your Google Drive, and then after you send it, you can insert the file. And like I told you, if you're having trouble with this, my suggestion is that you use a different voice recording program. You have to use one that will allow it to be recorded as a WAV file instead of like MP4 or whatever it is. Okay, so again, there's a lot of information without you even trying it first, but like I'm sure if you try it, it'll be okay. And just quickly, I want to show you what it sounds like. It's nothing special, but the first missionaries in California came there in the 1700s. They were attempting to convert Native American people, and they came from Spain, and of course they were Catholics. Okay, so obviously your one is going to be better than mine because I didn't really research it. I just looked very quickly on the internet. I found some very basic information, but like I said, your slide should be at least 4 or 5 slides and maybe more depending on how many slides you need. And when you record your voice, each one should be a bit longer than this. Okay, so if questions come up, you can always email me about that. But again, the reason I did this today is I just want to let you know what's going to happen in our midterm, and I wanted to kind of put it in your mind so that you can start thinking about what's going to happen. Okay, so let's keep going. All right. Okay, so review of last week, our last video. In the last video, we finished up chapter 2. We also had a quick lesson about the history of tipping in the United States. I mentioned this in the video already, but I just want to repeat that the cultural lessons are just something that I'm adding to videos because I don't want to make this class too boring. Remember that it's just this book. I'm reading it more and more. As I read it more and more, I realize that it repeats a lot of stuff over and over again. It's kind of just letting us know the same information again in a different way. So that can get pretty boring. And in order to avoid just telling you the same thing again and again, I'm adding in the cultural lessons just as something to kind of mix it up and learn something a little different. And like I mentioned before, you don't have to remember anything in those cultural lessons. They're just whatever. They're just there kind of to spend some time, okay? Alright, so what are we going to do in this video? First of all, we're going to start Unit 3. And we're going to also have a lesson on pronunciation. The reason I'm giving you a lesson on pronunciation is because, like I mentioned before, you're going to be graded on pronunciation in your midterm exam. So it's important that I teach you a little bit about pronunciation and try to help with some common mistakes that Korean people tend to have when they speak English. And I should have made a slide, but let's just look really quickly at the title of this unit. So this is called Chapter 3, The Pioneers of KMUS, Section 1, Edward Adams and James Adams and all that stuff. So again, we learned a lot about these guys. So let's see what happens. Okay, so as I mentioned in a previous video, this book starts to repeat a lot of the things we have already covered before. For example, this unit gives even more details about the Addams families and others. I'm going to skip the things that we already know. So I don't know how many of you are actually reading the book. I expect that there are some students who are not really reading it carefully. That's fine because, my videos, I think, give a pretty good summary of what's happening in the book. So what I'm basically doing in this video is I'm reading the book, and if I feel like there's some new information that we didn't learn before, I'm going to put it in the video. But if it's just stuff that we already learned and we already talked about, I'm just going to skip it and not talk about it, okay? So okay. It talked about James Adams again. It kind of told us all the stuff we already know about James Adams. But the new thing was it talked about his Korean teacher, which was kind of interesting. Just quickly, when James first came to Korea, he stopped in Busan. That was the first place he stopped, and he had brought his young boy and his other kids. Edward Adams, who really made the school. Anyway, the Korean teacher's name was Kim Jae-sol. He was from Hwasan. The reason he became a Christian, interestingly, was he was healed by Western medicine. So, forgot exactly what it said. He had some kind of tumor or something on his body, like a big lump on his body, and he had tried Eastern medicine or Korean medicine, and it was not very effective. So he met a foreigner, I guess, or a missionary who knew a little bit about Western medicine. And I think what they did was they just used surgery to remove it, and they did it in a way that was clean, and he was not. He did not get sick, so he was very moved by that, and he decided to devote his life to being a Christian. And he eventually went up to Pyongyang. Remember, we mentioned this before, that actually the northern part of Korea was a really big epicenter for Christianity in Korea. So I don't know why, but that's pretty interesting. I guess Christianity now is illegal, maybe even. That's debatable in North Korea, but that was like the first place. So Pyongyang, the theological college, and then he came down to Busan, and that's where he met James. And then he eventually came to Daegu too and helped as well. So Really good guy, Kim Jae-seo. Okay. Now, so something interesting that was not really mentioned too much in the early chapters of the book was that leprosy was a common disease at the time in Daegu, and a lot of the early work done by missionaries and the whole Miguk, Yakbang, and the Jejungwan was they were helping people that had leprosy. Korean is Nabyong. I don't know how much you know. Like everybody in America knows what leprosy is. It's a really famous disease. I guess most of you will know what it is, but I just want to maybe show you a couple pictures in case somebody's not really sure what it is. So this is leprosy. So this is a Korean person who had leprosy. What it is like a bacterial infection. Actually, I don't even think it's a virus. It's more of a bacteria, and it affects your skin and makes like your body die. Even like parts of your body could be like your arm, your finger. Fingers are very common to get infected and damaged, and then they need to be cut off. So I think that's where the Western medicine part comes in. Is they did surgery to cut off people's fingers and arms and all that stuff, and that even though it's terrible, right? Cutting somebody's finger or arm or leg off, doing that would usually save their life, because if you didn't cut off their fingers or their hand, it would just keep spreading until you died. So that was really the only way to fix it at that time before we had medicine to fix it. So very terrible disease, but these first missionaries, that was something they were working on as well. Okay, this really surprised me. I had no idea about this. The first Daegu apples came from James Adams. Wow, amazing. The book says that he brought some apple trees from America. Korea had apples, obviously, but he kind of combined them, like he mixed the American apple with the Korean apple, and it made a delicious, amazing apple. So that is the reason why Daegu is so famous for apples, is because James Adams developed the Daegu apple. Like, my mind was blown. Whoa, I had no idea. Like that, I was really surprised by this one. So that's pretty cool, I guess, right? Kind of interesting. James Adams, Edward Adams' father, we know that he made some elementary schools. That was mentioned in the first chapter, but I didn't know he had made so many. It said that he made 49 elementary schools in Daegu and Gyeongsangbuk-do areas. So that's a lot. He made like a lot of schools, and I think, this Adams family had a really huge impact on Korea. So pretty impressive. Remember in the first unit, like I told you, I wasn't really sure about Edward Adams, like what his story was. Did he study in America? What happened with him? It's kind of my fault, because my style for doing this class is I read one chapter and then I teach you about it, because I felt like that was the most natural way. The book is by unit. If I read the whole book, then I might teach you things that were from the last unit in this week, so it would really mix things up. So that's the reason I'm doing it like this. But like I said, in the first unit we learned a lot about Edward Adams, but it was almost like a mystery, and now we finally get to know exactly what actually happened. So again, he was born in America. He came as a baby to Korea with his father, James. He lived in Daegu for quite a while. It doesn't exactly say in the book, but it seems like when he was around 11, 12, 13, something like that, kind of a young boy, or a very young man almost, becoming a man. He moved back to America, and I'm pretty sure without his parents. He moved alone. So his parents stayed in Korea, but he went to America to study. He went to high school and maybe even some middle school in America. Then he finished university and theological school as well. And a lot later, he came back to Korea in around 1925. Oh, am I missing? Oh no, that's weird. Yeah, I'm missing something. Okay. So, yeah, he came back to Korea in 1925. Interestingly, I mentioned this a little bit in the last slide, but during World War II, right? Again, the Japanese attacked America, which brought America into a war between Japan and the United States. A lot of Americans were living in Korea at this time. He had a chance at the beginning to leave, but he said, no, I want to stay in Korea. So he was trying to help Korean people during this time, but he got in trouble. He was captured by the Japanese military. That was a surprise. I didn't know that. And they forced him to go back to the US. So I'm actually surprised that the Japanese did not kill him or do something crazy, because during World War II, the Japanese were very bad. I don't want to have a whole discussion, right? You could say they were always bad, but especially during World War II, they did a lot of really, really, really bad stuff. So I'm surprised they didn't kill Edward. I guess he was lucky. But they just sent him back to America. I guess they let him leave and go back, even though there's a war happening. So I'm a little surprised. I'm curious, like, what exactly happened. The book does not explain, but I don't know. I don't know what happened there. But as soon as the war was over, he came right back. Okay, so like this guy was really dedicated to Korea. I know we've mentioned this before, but like this guy is a really, really great man, Edward Adams. So he really dedicated his whole life to helping Korea. So, awesome guy, Edward Adams. During the Korean War, he very bravely, helped as many as 3,000 people escape from Seoul before the communist forces destroyed the city. So, as you guys know, there was the Korean War. The war started, and they started to move towards Seoul. So I believe he was in Daegu, and he went up to Seoul, even though he knew that the North Koreans, backed by the Chinese, were coming, and he helped a lot of people escape and get out and go take a boat to Incheon. So this is a super dangerous situation, but he was brave enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna go to Seoul even though they're coming, and I'm gonna help people get out. So again, like we said, we already thought this guy Edward Adams was pretty awesome, but this is just an extra thing that shows that this guy dedicated his whole life to Korea, and he was super brave and awesome guy. Edward Adams was really awesome. I didn't know much about Edward Adams, but teaching this class has really changed my mind, and this is a person who I really respect and am very impressed by. So, yeah. Okay, so the book goes on. This unit is actually one of the longer units. It's got a lot of information in it about other stuff. We'll do that in the next video. We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to spend some time giving you pronunciation tips. This thing actually takes kind of a long time, so I'm not going to finish everything in this video. I'll finish the rest in the next video. But I also have to introduce our assignment as well. So what should I do? I have 5 minutes left. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly tell you about what the assignment is. But the assignment is about pronunciation. I don't know what to do. Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. Like I mentioned in a previous video, for some stupid reason, the program that KMU has given us for recording video does not let you like pause the video and start again. Once you pause it, your video is done and you just have to keep going. So that's why sometimes my brain gets a little confused and I'm not sure about what I should do. Okay, but again, we have 5 minutes, so what I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of pronunciation and for the assignment, I'll think about it. I might give you one more week of no assignment, guys. I know that's crazy, but I might give you one more week with no assignment. So I guess that's good for you. But let's check it out just a little bit. No, what's wrong? So again, we only have a few minutes left, so I'll just do one or two of these, but there are a lot of these pronunciation mistakes. So the 10 common English pronunciation errors by Korean people. As a teacher, you will notice that different countries, when they speak English, they're going to have different mistakes that are common. Like, for example, people from Spain, when they speak English, they're going to have a certain mistake that like almost everybody makes and it's very common. But people from China will have a different mistake and people from Korea will have a different mistake that they make. And it just has a lot to do with your natural language affecting the language that you're trying to learn. These are tough to fix, but it is possible if you can really focus your mind. So let's look at some of these. So the first one is the difference between E and I. Okay, so in English we have a sound that is a little bit longer and E sound that's a little bit shorter. So like if you listen to this sentence, please sit on the seat next to the ship. Please sit on the seat next to the sheep on the ship. This causes problems with Korean people. The most famous example is the word beach, because a lot of Korean people say it is bitch instead of beach. And as you might know, bitch is a bad word in English, right? It's a cursing word, so you have to be very careful about using it. But the way you can fix this is if you see a word that has EA or EE, like in beach, BEACH, it's all about the length of the vowel. So like again, Korean people just want to say right, like bitch, beach, ship, sheep. Like if you just keep the E a little bit longer, then it's gonna sound correct. So if you want to practice with me for a second, if you say E, just 1 or 2 seconds, E, then you're gonna make the right sound. So please sit, that's the short one, on the seat next to the sheep on the ship. Let's go to the beach. Why don't you, for the last minute of the video, because the video is almost like pretty much over, I'm gonna have to do this again. I'm gonna have to finish these in the next video, but you try by yourself. Just read it one time, and remember, with these ones, just make the E sound last for 1 or 2 seconds and see if you can do it correctly. Please sit on the seat next to the sheep on the ship. Alright, so the video is finished, like with 45 minutes. Um, like I said, I think this week I'm gonna give no assignment, um, and then I will finish up the pronunciation next week, and then I'll give you a pronunciation assignment. So sorry to confuse you guys with the information at the beginning of the video, but anyway, I'll see you next week. Okay, have a good